So in the first part of this video tutorial, we outlined what religion was, and that's a belief system, and how that as a belief system has been replaced by science as another belief system. And we outlined how they were different, that religion as a belief system is closed, it claims absolute truth and is unwilling to be challenged, whereas science is an open belief system which is open to criticism, builds on knowledge, it's always changing, it's always evolving. Now, this part is going to challenge that idea because it is argued that science itself is not as open as we'd like to make out, and actually science is a closed system. So despite Popper's argument, some scientific theories would argue that science is also a closed system, and some scientific theories that go against the fundamental assumptions within the normal scientific paradigm will often be rejected out of hand. Science assumes that there's only one truth about a given subject. So, for example, the laws of gravity are universal and that cannot change. In the same way that now the scientific community have settled on the way that the world was created and the origins of the universe. Okay, and that's part of the paradigm. And Kuhn argues that science is actually a self-sustaining closed system rather than an open system. And he argues that it's a closed system because mature sciences such as biology, geology and physics is based on a set of shared assumptions which he calls a paradigm. Now, a paradigm is just a way of thinking. It gives a broad outline and the scientist's job is to carefully fill in the details. So these closed system as a paradigm influences as a scientist what you can research. It will tell you what the reality is like, what problems to study, what methods and equipment to use, what will count as evidence, and even possibly what answers they should be finding when they conduct the research. Now, if a scientist goes against the paradigm, they'll be shunned from the scientific community. As in the case of Dr. Velikovsky. Now, you should remember this from when sociology is a science, because this is basically your evidence that sociology shouldn't be a science because science itself is not a science. And in the case of Dr. Velikovsky, he published The Worlds in Collision, and he put forward a new theory on the origins of the Earth. Velikovsky's theory challenged some of the most fundamental assumptions of geology, astronomy and evolutionary biology. Now, the response for the scientific community was far from open, one advocated by Popper. Instead of putting the new theory to the test, falsifying it, to see if it explained the observed facts, scientists just rushed to reject it out of hand. They didn't even read the book. A boycott of Velikovsky's publishers was organised, and scientists who called for a fair hearing for the theory to be put to the test were victimised, and some even lost their jobs. Now, the only exceptions to this is during one of the rare periods which Kuhn describes as a scientific revolution. This is where faith in the truth of that paradigm has already been undermined. There might have been an accumulation of anomalies or accumulation of facts that have been put forward which are outside the paradigms. Only then that scientists will come open to radically shift what the paradigm is. Okay. So the real facts of science are real enough. The techniques that scientists use are real, and the technologies based on them are real. But science is part of another belief system that governs the conventional scientific thinking, and that in itself becomes another belief or an act of faith. So interpretivist sociologists who would develop Kuhn's ideas would argue that knowledge in this case, including scientific knowledge, is socially constructed. So rather than being objective, it is created by social groups using the resources available, and they're the product of the shared theories or the paradigms. So basically they are just finding evidence that fits their belief systems. Other theories, and what they would say, are more critical, such as Marxist and feminism. So they see scientific knowledge as being very far from the pure truth. Instead, they see it as serving the interests of the dominant groups, the ruling class in the case of Marxism, and men in the case of feminists. Thus, many advances in supposedly pure science has been driven by the need of capitalism for certain types of knowledge. Biological ideas, for example, have been used to justify both male domination and colonial expansion. So in this respect, science can be seen as a form of ideology. In a different sense, postmodernists also reject the knowledge claims of science to have the truth. Lyotard argues that science is just another meta-narrative or a big story that falsely claims to offer the truth. In reality, science is just another discourse, just another way of thinking that is used to dominate people. Okay? And similarly, like Marxists, some postmodernists argue that science has become a techno-science, simply serving capitalist interest by producing commodities for profits. Okay? So, this should outline the different views about religion, belief system, science as a belief system, why they're different, and why science is also another belief system. And we start to lead into ideology, which will be the next lesson. Okay, what I would like you to do is have a look at the 2 research tasks that I've set aside for you. Firstly, witchcraft amongst the Azandi. So at least you can understand a little bit more about closed belief systems. And secondly, have a little bit of a research about the case of Dr. Velikovsky. Okay, so thank you for listening.